Good evening. You're watching the People's Court. Are people in our country living in an atmosphere of fear? Is the Constitution of India or democracy in danger? Well, that is the apprehension that has been expressed by the Archbishop of Goa in his annual letter to the flock. So why is it that again and again, in fact thrice in the last 8 months, these fears have been expressed by the church? Is there a genuine problem that the government has failed to address? Are the minorities in India living in a state of fear? And if yes, why is the government not alive to this clear and present danger? Or is it a simple case of the church interfering in the state? That's what we are putting in the People's Court. I'm Padmaja Joshi. It's a matter of tradition. Every year, the Goa Archbishop writes a letter to his parish. But this time, he seems to have made a political appeal to his flock. Remember, this is the third letter in 8 months that has come from the church in India. After Gujarat, Delhi, now it's the turn of Goa. A letter that says that the constitution is in danger and that Christians should get active politically ahead of the 2019 elections. Human rights are under attack and democracy appears to be in peril. Minorities fear for their safety. Today, our constitution is in danger. These are not the words of any politician, but those of the Goa Archbishop. This is what he wrote in his annual pastoral letter to his parish, urging Catholics to actively participate in politics as general elections approach. But the Archbishop does not stop there. He cautions against an alleged new trend of uniformity in the country and imposition of mono-culturalism, a lack of respect for the law and displacement in the name of development, a charge that hasn't gone down well with the ruling BJP.
किसी को इस तरह के फतवे और इस तरह के फरमान जारी करके गलतफहमी अपने दिमाग में नहीं पालनी चाहिए और ना ही समाज में किसी तरह का कंफ्यूजन क्रिएट करने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए.
Somehow one or two statements of that letter of the bishop have been taken out, and I will say taken out of context. Try to understand the context of why it is being said what was said.
The reason this has evoked such strong criticism is because it has come on the heels of a similar appeal by the Delhi Archbishop, where he warned against the turbulent political atmosphere in the country and asked his parish to pray for the nation in the run-up to 2019 elections.
It is not the Indian constitution in danger, nor the Indian democracy is in peril. What is in danger and in peril is Catholic mission's intention, motive and agenda to convert Hindus into Christianity.
संविधान और इन तमाम चीज़ों को छोड़ दीजिए, इंसानियत खतरे में है. तो मेरा मानना ये है कि आर्कबिशप ने जो कुछ भी कहा है, दिल्ली में कहा हो या गोवा में कहा हो, वो बिल्कुल अपनी जगह बिल्कुल हिंदुस्तान के परिप्रेक्ष्य में सही है.
First the Gujarat Archbishop seeking votes for secular candidates, then the Delhi Archbishop and now Goa. One after another, Christian religious heads have raised their minorities under threat pitch. Is this a mere bid to raise political awareness, or are they overstepping their roles and mixing the duties of church and state? Bureau Report, India Today. Okay, let's start out by introducing to you the guests we have on People's Court. Ghanshyam Tiwari, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. Reverend Valsan Thampu, he's the former principal of St. Stephen's College. In a while, we will also be joined by the Secretary for the Goa Archbishop and Amit Malviya of the BJP. But I want to first start by asking you, Reverend Thampu, does it not seem to you like a broad stroke generalization to say that constitution, democracy and people in the country are either in danger or living in fear?
Well, good evening to all the viewers. I find that this reaction is highly exaggerated and disproportionate. In the first place, these two archbishops were not the first to say that democracy is in peril or that an atmosphere of intolerance is gaining ground in India. 4 senior judges of the Supreme Court of India came out in public and said the same thing. And secular thinkers all over the country have been saying this. So I don't think that the archbishops invented something in order to spread fear among the flock and to influence them to behave in a particular fashion politically.
You do not find this statement political, considering that they have specifically mentioned the 2019 elections?
Well, you see, now yes, I have to say this, you see, there is a lot of lack of understanding about religions. Now, if you know the nature of Christian spirituality, Christian spirituality is an all-embracing thing. It looks at all aspects of human life. Now, it's another matter that church authorities should not use their position to slant the dispositions of people in a particular manner. But I consider it to be basic to the spiritual responsibility of a leader to raise awareness about realities that come into existence from time to time. Secondly, I find this whole exercise very hypocritical because just today we had this controversy about the Ayodhya temple. Now BJP came to power using communal politics. So mixing of state and church or state and religion is perfectly all right.
Okay.
If it goes to the political advantage of BJP. But if it is perceived to be to their disadvantage, then it becomes an issue. Now, for example, consider the hypothetical situation. As a Christian leader, if I were to write a letter tomorrow addressing thousands of the people who know me saying that I believe that Prime Minister Modi is the best person to control corruption in this country, please vote for him. I doubt if there would be this debate. In fact, I would be hailed.
Okay, let's see if Amit Malviya agrees with you over there.
Held up as an example of secular thinking. So it is not a question.
Amit Malviya.
Padmaja, I was hearing Mr. Thampu explain at length the nuances of what he thinks is right and what he thinks is not right. The fact is that church is an institution, and the genesis of the word secularism rose from the fact that church must dissociate itself from the state. In our country as well, there is several records where the state has had an undue influence on the politics of this country, particularly the northeastern states and some other in the western parts of the country. The fact is that when these kind of letters are written out by the priests of the church, they're not doing so in their personal capacity, but they're doing so as head of those institutions. Now, is this really going to change the discourse of India's politics? Perhaps not. But what is it doing at the end of it? It's inadvertently somewhere leading to a reverse polarization, a majoritarian view also taking root. What is it that these gentlemen, the Archbishop of Delhi and Goa, have tried to do by putting out these letters? Is it rooted in the fact that in the last 4 years, Mr. Modi's administration has come down heavily on foreign funded missionary institutions here in India who have put a lid on the conversion, the forceful conversions that were happening in this country?
Okay,
and they've
you're
been
saying,
happening there for decades.
you're saying this is calculated backlash to the anti-conversion activities of the Modi government.
I am only putting out what could be the reasons for it, and I'm also warning that are they inadvertently trying to take the minorities of this country out of the mainstream?
Okay, Reverend
by
Thampu,
what they're doing, they're risking a counter-polarization, a majoritarian view, which our liberal ethos do not want. Are these archbishops actually doing a lot of disservice to the community?
Okay, Reverend
the institution
Thampu,
that they head?
the allegation, it's a calculated move because in 8 months you've seen not one but 3 archbishops pretty much echo each other, and the connection that Amit Malviya makes to the crackdown by the Modi government on supposed conversion activities carried out in some parts of the country.
But I think we should not lose sight of the hypocrisy in all these arguments. I'm not a supporter of church playing politics at all. In fact, I take a completely independent view of the position of the church in society, politics, etc. But that apart, if there is a principle, and Malviya invoked the principle of the separation between the church and the state. Now, if that is the essence of secularism, my only submission is that that principle should apply across the board. It should apply to BJP also. Now, we have seen this happen routinely, that in the months that precede elections, political parties visit all religious leaders in order to seek their support for their electoral gains. Now, even godmen are involved in this process, as in the case of Ram Rahim, for example. Now, that is perfectly all right.
But Reverend Thapu, with respect, do those godmen do it by saying that democracy is under danger and we have an atmosphere of fear, and the only way to save the constitution of democracy is to vote for a particular party? I also, please just stay with me because I want to quickly bring in Ghanshyam Tiwari and Father Loyola Pereira as well.
But it's a matter. No.
Okay, Reverend Thapu, very quickly, please. Yes.
But let me say this. You see, the issue. I think the issue is not one of phraseology. The issue is one of principle. My only submission is I'm all for the separation of church and state.
Okay.
I am for the privatization of religion. I am for the the civil society and the governance of the country to be entirely governed by the Constitution. Unfortunately, that is what is under threat today. So, the idea, now all sorts of extraneous things are being brought in. Now, this conversion bogey, for example, please look into the statistics. What is the percentage of India's Christian population? It is 2.18%. It has shrunk from 3.64 in 1971 to 2.18. And going by the breastbeating that one hears about conversion, Christianity should have been a dominant religion here. Conversion is not happening, for God's sake. Conversion is happening from Hinduism to Buddhism. Buddhism, for example, it happened yesterday because of the oppression.
Well,
I have taken a stand against conversion. In fact, 20 years ago I said that Christians should stop converting people. I'm not for conversion.
From the times of Mahatma Gandhi to the Niyogi Commission and several commissions who've come around that period in the last 7 decades have pointed to the phenomena of corruption, of conversion. I'm sorry, although corruption and conversion are pretty much the same as far as coercion is concerned. But important question is that if there is no conversion happening, then what was 10,000 crores which was coming into this country doing? And Padmaja, another important point, since Professor Thampu spoke about hypocrisy, I want to point out for your viewers that ever since Mr. Modi's government came to power, the first year was about this boogie on church attacks. Eventually it was found out that these were stray incidents and there was nothing which was planned as an assault on the minority community. That fizzled out. Then started the whole narrative about the Dalit persecution. That also unfortunately fell apart. And by the way, the Dalit persecution ties in very well with the conversion factory that goes on in the country. Then came the Muslim minority, whole boogie was built up. Unfortunately, that also fell apart. And one last thing, how does it happen in our country that every time a minority is under any kind of threat, which it should not happen to anybody irrespective of what their denomination is, there is a great deal of outrage. But every time somebody from the majority community suffers the same fate, there's not a word from anyone, including the church. And the recent instance being the two gentlemen, the Dalit boy in West Bengal and the Dalit boy in Kerala.
So I will stop you from going into that circle of whataboutery because we have discussed that, Amit Malviya, as well.
I know, Padmaja, but I'm not even getting into whataboutery. I'm only pointing out to the hypocrisy. And I also want to tell you that in the last year, more than 50 people from the majority community were killed in violence perpetuated and unleashed by those from the minority
political
community.
violence. So Father
And
Loyola
there was
Pereira,
no word on it from anybody, including the church.
Okay. Father
or
Loyola
religious
Pereira,
head or conscientious citizens. such as
Secretary
Mr.
of the
Kambu.
Goa Archbishop, is now live with us. Sir, tell me, there are allegations that you are a part of this plot to try and show an atmosphere in the country that doesn't exist, whipping up fear and paranoia. The letter that you have written talks about, among other things, mono-culturalism, human rights under attack, democracy in peril, and how people are living in insecurity because the constitution is in danger. Are you then guilty of whipping up paranoia unsubstantiated? Father Pereira.
Thank you. I have joined a bit too late because I had problems with connection and I could not really follow what the discussion was till now. But anyway, now that you asked the question, may I be allowed to first say what a pastoral letter is? Because I can see that there is a great accent on one or two or three statements that the bishop has made in the pastoral letter. But for the clarification of the public, I would like to say first what a pastoral letter is. May I?
Yes. I know that this is an address that is made every year. We have clarified that at the outset. But since you brought up the intricacies of a pastoral letter, Father Pereira, this has happened for all the years since 2004. But having gone through all of those pastoral letters since 2004, there is no mention of elections in any of those except now, where you say, particularly as the general elections are fast approaching, we must strive to know our constitution better and work harder to protect it. Why these sudden political overtones now, 6 months before the elections?
Because the previous pastoral letters addressed issues like problems in the family, problems faced by the youth, problems faced by the marginalized. This time, there is a focus on poverty of different types. And while dwelling on this, the Archbishop has made reference to some perils that he has perceived as, for the society, especially for the marginalized.
You think under the present dispensation, the marginalized are being forced into a mono-culturalism and are living in fear?
No, we are not saying anything about the present dispensation, present government, or anything.
Okay.
The Archbishop has not referred to any particular government. And let it not be seen that this is a letter against the present dispensation. It is not.
Then why are you reading political motive into it, Amit Malviya? Here, Father Loyola Pereira says it is not aimed at your government or your party, Amit Malviya.
Well, I'm not reading any motives in it. If anybody who has basic understanding and reading of English would know what the letter is all about. And if nothing is wrong as per Mr. Pereira, then obviously this letter really makes no sense. Why this call for change in government? Why this boogie of the constitution being under threat? Which constitution did he refer to? The Indian constitution is doing pretty fine. Indian democracy has seen through several attempts to dismember and to undermine India's constitution when emergency was imposed in this country by Indira Gandhi. We've lived through it, we've come through stronger. We are not living in times like the 1970s. What is it that the Archbishop has seen and what has necessitated this letter?
Father Pereira.
Let us remember that the pastoral letter is about the poor, the marginalized. And there is no exaggeration if one says that the marginalized are being victimized by the government. I don't say this government. Many governments have victimized the poor people. Now, we have the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution that uphold the rights of the poor, the marginalized. There are reservations for the scheduled castes, scheduled tribe.
Well, Padmaja, again, I read the letter and there's a line which says the people who suffer the most when development happens is poor. What kind of a rhetoric is that? And who says that poor and the marginalized in this country are today suffering? The maximum subsidy programs, the maximum welfare programs are being run for the poor in this country. Which subset has the Archbishop referred to while he wrote this letter? And why is he talking about the SC and ST? I thought Christianity was an egalitarian faith. There were no castes in it. Unless they admit to these conversions and discrimination that still perpetuates in the name of Christianity here even in India, where there are people referred as Dalit Christians and otherwise. I'm sorry, the death of the young man in Kerala, which nobody, including the church, commented on, was a Dalit Christian, and he was killed for being a Dalit
Father
Christian.
Pereira, are you being oversimplistic about this letter, which has overt political shades? It is making a political statement where you're talking only about the poor and the marginalized. There is repeated reference to the elections and seems to suggest that the danger that people are in is because of what is happening in the recent past in the country or the government or party in power.
See, the poor are victimized. There is no going away from it.
Okay, so let me rephrase that question.
Excuse me.
If the poor have always been victimized by governments, why is it that before 2018 it found no mention in your annual letter?
No, because there was not any particular allusion or reference to the governance. There were other problems that were being addressed.
Okay.
Family problems, youth problems. Now this, because we are talking about poor people, we have the Dalits. Somebody spoke about Christian Dalits. I'm not talking about Christian Dalits. I'm talking about Dalits in general. Do they have or the rights that are enshrined for them in the Constitution are being given to them?
If the church is speaking for the disempowered, should they be seen as political?
Well, look at the four principal arguments that Amit Malviya and BJP is making. One, they said they are against foreign funding of any kind. The question is, has anyone in BJP in the last 4 months told to the country why did they pass a finance bill that allows political funding foreign funding to political parties without scrutiny? I challenge Amit Malviya to give one good argument he would not be able to. Second, he talks about principle of church and the state. Who's Yogi Adityanath? Ajay Singh Bist. He is still a serving Mahant while being a chief minister. In Madhya Pradesh, six people who were exposing corruption of Shivraj Singh government. Computer Baba was made a minister, given a ministerial charge. Why was that? Why is taxpayer money being given to Babas? Third argument he makes is about, are poor exploited? What have you done to the poor? Your own members of parliament are writing to the prime minister, and how many times
that's a good point. If you can have a computer Baba, if you can have Yogi Adityanath, why can't the church make political statements? Amit Malviya.
Because Padmaja, Yogi Adityanath has his own faith and he's entitled to one. As the chief minister of the state of Uttar Pradesh, the state of Uttar Pradesh does not have a religion. I can understand the Samajwadi Party will never be able to. Can you please let me make my point? And don't speak over me.
Why? You are the God?
Don't speak over me. You have this very bad habit of not listening.
Well,
let me finish and make my point.
Your government has a fantastic habit of listening.
Let me make my point, Ghanshyam. Don't speak over me. The problem is that when Samajwadi Party gives doles to Maulanas,
what about computer Baba? You deflecting the point.
When somebody
finance bill, foreign funding to political parties, does your party gain from foreign funding?
Or given an administrative responsibility, they object to it. Are you saying that people who are practicing private
on a pious river like Narmada, Minister of State?
Why should taxpayer or hold public office?
Bear the burden of such Babas? Can you let me make my point,
Ghanshyam Tiwari?
No, Amit Malviya, explain computer Baba. Explain computer Baba.
I'm coming to that if he just stopped speaking.
Yeah.
The fact is that anybody who is a saint or who has given up worldly pleasures does not dissuade him from holding a public office or from taking over a responsibility where he might be responsible for doing public good.
When
but
he's
his
exposing
faith
it, he was already
does
doing
not
public good. He was
become the
exposing
faith of
corruption
the
of
state.
Shivraj Singh
And that
government.
is the distinction that is important. Yogi Adityanath is a practicing Hindu. He is the Mahant of the Gorakhnath feet.
Okay.
But his faith is not the faith of the state, which is the state
And he's
government
a
of Uttar
part-time chief
Pradesh.
minister.
That distinction is very, very important. And unless people understand this, and unless people stop
your
questioning
arguments are
those who
falling
come from
flat
the
because
majoritarian faith,
they are
the
devoid of
secularism that
principles
we're
and
trying
loaded
to
with
push
politics.
in this country is going to go nowhere.
No, and with respect, Amit Malviya, in the case of the Babas who have been appointed or who have been given MOS status in Madhya Pradesh, they have a following because of their religious standing, and now it is going to be used for political purposes as well. I think that is quite clear to everyone. But let me come back to you, Reverend Valsan Thampu. You wanted to respond to what you've heard so far, where Amit Malviya says there's a distinction when you appeal to a Lingayat seer for votes. He does not say that there is an atmosphere of a certain kind, which is why you should vote for X party or Y. They only say stay true to the faith. Reverend Thampu.
Yeah, actually, but Maja, the issue is that there must be two different standards. There must be two different standards for judging two different people. Obviously, the BJP has internalized the view that the standards that apply to itself cannot apply to others. So what it does with great sense of legitimacy becomes a crime and offense for others. But I want to come back to this issue of the political character of the letters. I think the Archbishop spokesperson is being very, very hypocritical if he pretends that these letters are not political in character. They're out and out political in character.
Absolutely.
But the question I want to ask is, why is being political such a crime? I thought being political was a basic responsibility of a citizen in a democratic state.
Okay, I think
that's number one. Number two.
Okay, Reverend Thampu, I'm really sorry, but I'm completely out of time. But that is the note on which I wanted to end. Let's drop the pretenses. It was an overtly political letter. Perhaps all three that have been written in the recent past, in the 8 months. Also, one question. Why is it that the church persists to remain silent on what is happening in Meghalaya, where there is a community which is being victimized and which is the recipient of violence? We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks all gentlemen for joining. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you would love to.